Hi, everyone. I hope you're well and you've had a great week so far. Welcome to the Mums on Cloud Nine podcast. Today, we are excited to talk about how you're going to use AI to transform how you go for interviews for jobs. We can't wait to share these top tips with you. And Lani is here with us today, who is one of our Supermums. She's been through one of our training courses, and then she shared all this remarkable story about how she used AI as her career coach and job coach to get her ready for interviews. And I thought of her as a perfect person because one, she got the job after a 5-stage interview process, which is obviously a great outcome. But secondly, she was so kind as to put together all of her learning into a presentation and share it with other people, with the Supermans community, but also more widely than that. And she's even created a prompt tool to help people to coach them herself. So, Lani, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today and just sharing your journey with you. I think, we've just had a bit of a pre-show talk and you were saying about how, you haven't been in the workplace for a while and how you wanted to really get that support to go for job interviews. So do you want to just introduce yourself, your background, and just kick off some of this story with everyone?
Sure. So I hadn't been in the workplace. I just hadn't been job hunting for a while,
Okay.
just to clarify that, right? So, um, yeah. So, when I was looking for a job, I was, I think as women, especially, we don't always brag about ourselves. We're so busy kind of taking care of other people and just doing that we don't really take the time to kind of step back and think about the types of questions that we're going to be asked in an interview. Like, we're not constantly bragging and saying, I did this, I did this. And so I really was okay. So, what questions will I even be asked? I hadn't interviewed in a while. So, I wanted to prepare for how to answer those. I didn't want to go out and hire and pay money for someone to help me do that because I was looking for a job. So what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I started, just by having it help me update my resume. So it was very familiar with my skills. I put in a lot more than what I necessarily would put in a actual resume to send to an employer, but just to make it complete so ChatGPT knew a little bit about me. And then when I got an interview, I would go to ChatGPT and I would prompt it and just say, I have a interview coming up on this day with this person who works at this company. The purpose of the interview is this. Please give me 10 questions to help me prepare and 5 questions that I could ask them at the end of the interview. So I did that, and basically, I got the questions and I could read through them, and then I asked ChatGPT, okay, so I'm going to answer this question first, and I'd like for you to evaluate my answer. Tell me, is it a strong answer? How can I make it better? And so then I would do that and just kind of iterate through and keep making it better so that I felt prepared. And so, I also did that like the morning of as well. I'd kind of review my answers. But what that really did was it helped make the interview more of a conversation. It increased my confidence because even if I got asked different questions that weren't those questions, I'd been in that mindset where I was thinking about my achievements and what I had to offer so that I could answer even those other questions much more conversationally. It didn't feel like an inquisition.
I've got a quick question. When you
Sure.
set this up in ChatGPT, did you do each one as a separate clone and did you add in a markdown file with the information so you could just keep going back to that clone, or did you do it via just new chats?
For the resume or for the well, to answer your question, it was all one thread. I kept everything together. And I know that some ChatGTP, I had the paid version of
Yeah.
ChatGTP,
Oh,
which when I did it, had different capabilities than the free version. I think the free version still has like some limited capabilities. Like, I'm not sure if conversations are preserved. But at that point, ChatGTP couldn't really reference other conversations. So I kept everything in one place. So it just knew everything that I'd already chatted about and it could reference that.
I find that if I keep things in clones, they're almost like folders, aren't they, that you have down the
Mhm.
side. So you can just keep, if you were going for a specific job, just a way I'm thinking, then you could be putting it in that clone. Whereas if it was a slightly different job, you could maybe put it in a different clone. Maybe just thinking outside the box, really.
No. I think that's actually a great idea as well. But I kind of kept it all in one place. But I think if you're looking maybe for a marketing job or an admin job, you might want to keep those separate just because ChatGPT can hallucinate and get confused. So that kind of helps it be a little more clear. I think that's a really great idea, Lynn.
So I was just wondering, how did you actually transition from, you did this on the free version at first, right?
Well, I actually always had the paid version. So I did have the paid version, but in terms of building the GPT, I actually just did that this morning as
Oh,
I was
okay.
kind of reviewing what I had done before because it's
I
been
just
a
built a
while. So
GPT this morning. It's fine.
so I woke up early this morning and just kind of read through. I did, and I had intended to create kind of a custom GPT that I could share with people to allow them to sort of do the same thing. And I'd done that for other topics that weren't Salesforce related. I actually learned that at my job at GridMate, how to create a custom GPT from our marketing person. So I created that custom GPT this morning and I tested it a little bit just to kind of see how it's working. It initially didn't really give me what I wanted, so I had to tweak it a little bit. Custom GPTs are great. I didn't know anything about them. And I'm sure it's not just ChatGPT. I'm sure Gemini and Claude probably have similar things. Basically, what they allow you to do is if you have something that you use ChatGPT for a lot, it allows you to basically just sort of create a shortcut like instructions, just sort of like Agent Force, really, right? So it's your kind of Agent Force for ChatGPT for your particular use case.
So we had this morning. I had a meeting with one of our trainees, and I was instructing her how to actually build her own custom GPT on like a job hunt co-pilot. We were just naming it. I said you can change the name of it later, but putting your CV, all the different versions of your CV in the files, all the different versions of cover letters in those files. So it's picking data from that whole the whole bank of information of your whole kind of life and all different versions of your working life as well. So it was interesting.
You're just grounding the GPT in your own resume. So, like, one of the things I did for the GPT is to put your resume. Very similar for people who've been working on Agent Force. All the concepts are very similar, right? I mean, you're grounding it in data. The data you're grounding it in Salesforce and Agent Force is your org and your knowledge base, but you're creating your own knowledge base when you create your custom GPT as well, which is your resume, and then the job description and ChatGPT can also go to the website and look at the company. I mean, one of the things that I found it was really great for was helping me research the company a little bit as well, right? So it really looked at the website and it tailored those questions based on the particular company that I was interviewing with. So they weren't just random questions, right? Because anyone could just go online and find 10 random questions you might be asked in an interview. But it really tailored those questions and helped me tailor my answers to what would be most beneficial for that company, because that's ultimately what an employer is looking for, right? Is how can you help them?
The thing that I really loved what you mentioned is about using it as the rehearsal, because when I'm running the career advice sessions at Supermums, I just like to always talk about it's like being an actor on stage, right? This confidence. Nobody's confident just walking up on stage without any practice.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
ability to practice and practice. And you don't want to necessarily do it with a partner, they don't know how to help you. So I think the biggest thing that I love about what you said, all of it is amazing. But that point of rehearsing, and particularly before the interview in the morning, and help find your answers and going over it. Now that will cost a lot to do with somebody. I mean,
Exactly.
in terms of roles and everything, career coaches are great, right? There's an element of, yes, we don't want them to be out of a job, but that rehearsal is really important. And, to be the actress on the stage that's going to shine and be confident is exactly what you said, Lani. It is about just refining it. What one of the things that you shared, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about, is it's the importance of prompting as well. Like, using AI does take time. So how did you learn how to build the right prompts? And we have got some of those in the slide that you shared, so we'll put those in the show notes. But how did you even learn how to sort of do prompting and get it to where you needed it to be?
I guess that's a hard question for me to answer. I think to me, it felt very natural. I mean, because it is natural. You're just having a conversation, right? So if I were having a conversation with a person, I just really prompted what I wanted it to do specifically. But the thing to keep in mind with prompting is that it only knows the information that you feed it, right? So if I wanted it to be tailored toward a specific job, then I do need to prompt and include the information about that job, right? And potentially, I guess, to go back to your question, part of it is probably trial and error, right? Like when I first started using ChatGTP, which was basically when it was released, I might have asked much more general stuff and gotten bad answers. And so, in making mistakes, just like in life, in iterating on those mistakes, you learn things, right? And so, I guess I really learned how to prompt by providing more information and context so that I could get better outcomes.
Yeah, it's good because it's not over engineering. I think that just makes it really manageable for people. And I think something you also talked about when we were talking before we started recording was around adjusting your CV and making sure it's going through application tracking systems okay. Could you just share a little
Yeah.
bit more about how you used, because I think people are worried about using AI to help with their CV because that is one of the things that gets screening for. So how did you get that balance right?
The first thing is you don't want to just put your resume in ChatGPT and have it spit something out and not read it and send it off. That's the absolute worst thing you could do. But what I did do was I kind of had a master CV/resume, depending who's listening to this, what continent they're on, right? In the US, we call them resumes. But I would feed all of that through so that ChatGPT knew stuff about me. And then I would feed in the job description. So then I would ask ChatGPT to help me optimize my resume for that particular job description to help me get through the ATS tracking systems, right? The automated ones that are going to potentially screen you out. And I think the key is ChatGPT doesn't a good job at that, but it also hallucinates, right? So you have to be careful it's not overselling your experience or saying you did something that you didn't. That happened to me several times. I'd read through and I'd be like, no, I didn't do that exactly. What I did is this. So help me position this, which is what I actually did, so that it shows up strong on my resume. And then I would also have it reorder as well, so that sort of the key things they were looking for were at the top. And if there are other things that maybe are important that I want to share, they can be there. But knowing that a human, when they see that resume, is probably only going to read the first couple things under each job, kind of highlight those things. So I did that for every job. I'd put in the job description, and I would probably spend a half an hour or 45 minutes really just kind of working through that. And I'd save a new version of the resume for each job, because when you're working, you're not just doing 5 bullet points in a job for your whole tenure. You have a lot of things that you've done, but the key really is to prioritize and highlight those things that are going to provide the most value to the potential employer.
Obviously, all of us, I don't know how we got by without ChatGPT before. I mean, it's just part of your everyday now, isn't it? And I think it's just so important to know that you're only going to get, as you said, you're only going to get out what you put in. And of course, a prompt that you put in, if you don't get the right answer, you can then elaborate. So it's not as long as you stay on the same chat, it's just quite good to know that you can just keep elaborating and then keep getting the right answers. So yeah, really, really good. It's a really great session today. I love this.
I've got this kind of brain where I tend to, I can't write the prompts nicely at all. And I'm aware of myself. You see people writing these really fancy, beautiful prompts. I will just brain dump everything into it and say, can you please turn this into a prompt that I'm going to ask you in 5 minutes' time?
Advice, yeah.
And that's
Okay.
what, for me, for my ADHD, that is the easiest thing I can do. Literally, either verbalise it or brain dump it and just say, give me a good prompt for you.
And that's okay. In fact, Kelly, I mean, to your point, once I had gotten my job and I was like, I wanted to share this information, I actually, at the end of that huge long prompt, which had many different jobs that I'd applied for, many different resumes, different interviews, I said, okay, now I would like to share this. Can you create for me a PowerPoint deck based on everything we've talked about and the process we went through that I can share with other people. So the first version of that PowerPoint deck actually came from ChatGPT.
Wow.
And so I had that, which is basically exactly what you said you do, right? I just dumped it all in and said, okay, give it to me. And then, I looked at it and I iterated and I made some changes. I sent it to a few people who I know who were also job hunting to kind of help them. And one of them, especially, was kind enough to really mark it up for me and make some changes and suggestions. So, ChatGPT is not the answer to all of our problems, right? Having a human in the loop, like my friend who looked at it, is critical, right? I mean, it was great to actually have a human look at it who's going through that, who actually was an editor as well, who was able to go through. And I didn't know she was an editor, but she said, hey, I'm an editor. I made a couple changes for you. And that was super helpful.
Touching on presentations, actually, I think that's a great other topic to talk about. So I've just been talking about presentation tools and AI, and so I've trialed about 6, 7 now. And Gamma AI is the one that I've landed on that I really love the most for creating branded presentations in minutes. So I pulled the information. I didn't do it in ChatGPT. I did it in Notion, but constantly the same. You with a PDF of words, right? And then created. If you were going for a job interview, I'd always recommend that you do it in the branded colours of the company. And with me, a tool like Gamma, there are other ones out there. So it's the one that I preferred for my use case. But I could put the template in there with the branded colours, upload the PDF, and it just turned all of that words. I could keep the same words, or it would use AI to make my points more concise or more of a talk track. And it would upload it into a presentation and stylize it within minutes. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Did you use a tool, Lani, for creating the presentation itself?
I didn't actually have to do a presentation per se, but I will say kind of what you just said kind of reminded me about making sure that the resume and everything is in your voice, right? Because ChatGPT has a way that it talks and communicates, and it may not sound like you, right? So I wanted to make sure, especially when I did cover letters and stuff, that it sounded natural, like a human wrote it, not like ChatGPT.
It might be important to talk about clones there, because Lyn's referenced clones. And one of the things that we've been learning is to upload as much information. Well, I say not all the information, but put some narrative in there that's about you. And there are some questions you can say. Can you create a personal clone? Ask me some questions about me in Kelly style and prompt, and you can create it so it knows your voice. So I've written a couple of books in my case, so I could upload the PDF and it will have that tone of voice. So I think it's another thing to look at is creating almost your personal clone, your language, your communication.
It becomes your personal assistant.
Mine's got my sense of humour as well.
That's great.
Oh, no.
I love that. I'm going to definitely do that.
Very good point. Yeah, sorry, Lani, I interrupted you, but I was like, clone.
No, but that's really a great point. I mean, doing it in the colors of the company just shows that you know something about the company too. And obviously they like those colors. So that's why they chose them, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense in doing it in your voice, because otherwise it's not going to feel natural. You're not going to have the confidence if it's talking like someone else. You're going to be comparing yourself up against this thing that you wrote that doesn't sound like you. So when you start talking about it, it's not going to feel natural.
Yeah, which is why with some of these tools, being able to preserve your PowerPoint deck, there was only certain tools that would do that actually. So I want my copy preserved, and I want you to update it, and I want the PowerPoint deck in it. It was interesting, like all the narrative preserved basically. So I think it's interesting. I say I sort of researched quite a few to land on one that kind of gave me the capabilities that I needed. But you can do those presentations quite quickly. I signed up to another course last night at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is actually run by an old friend of mine, old work colleague. But it is about how to build your own custom agents and apps. And I was like, okay, I need to know this, and we need it for our team. We need it to transform our business. So I've sort of invested. So we've invested now in personal clones for ourselves, how to build personal clones. We've invested in how to create some agents that we need from a work point of view. We've invested obviously in some AI tools for ourselves. It's interesting. I mean, you're not going to do everything at once, but I think, Lani, it's been so fascinating talking to you today to learn about this. Before we wrap up, you've obviously said you've built this little custom agent for us, which I'm like, how do you do that? That's a whole other session in its own right. But, I'm like itching to know that now. But how do people use that? Like, how would they go about it if we provide the link in the show notes?
Well, it's basically just a link. You click on it, and it has like a prompt that basically would say, and I just focused this one on just the interview prep. I thought about building one that was sort of the whole process, but this one's just interview prep, right? So I fed in sort of my prompt with placeholders into it when I built it and gave it some instructions on kind of how to iterate back and forth with the person. So you basically just click on it, says, I'm preparing for an interview. That starts the process. And it says, great, it's something to this effect. Like, I can help you prepare. Tell me the name of the person you're interviewing with. What is their role? What company is it? What's the purpose of the interview? When is it? How long is it? It asks you some questions. Is it going to be on Zoom or is it in person? So it helps you prepare. And then once you do that, then it will feed you those 10 questions that are sort of the top 10 questions. Oh, and since you've given it you'll also feed in the, actually, I don't know if I added that. I might actually go in and tweak it to put in also the job description, right? Because I put in your resume, the job description, so that it knows exactly what job you're interviewing for, so that can all be knowledge to improve the questions that it feeds to you and customizes it. So then it gives you those 10 questions. It also, another thing that it did, I when I played with it this morning, it's even better than when I did it initially, right? It'll actually tell you something about the person you're interviewing with. And, so I used you as an example, right, Heather? So it told me a little bit about you, how you were an accidental admin, and, just a little bit so that you could have that information to kind of tailor your questions and what are the things that your interviewer might think are important. And then it gives you sort of the 5 questions that at the end of the interview, if they haven't been answered, you could ask so that you can have thoughtful questions and not just be tongue-tied.
Oh, you are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that and doing it. You were probably at 4 in the morning doing that.
No, I just woke up at 6. It's no big deal. It's a little earlier than usual. So, but I will tweak that actually and play with it a little more this evening. So I'm not sure when you're going to share the link, but yeah.
Okay. But is that link the link stays the
The
same?
link will still work. Yeah, the link should still work. I just would do an edit to it.
And so if you click the link, will it just install something to your own chat GPT? How does it work?
Yeah, it just opens ChatGPT and it says, ace your job interview and advance your career. And then you just click, help me prepare for my job interview. And then it's going to ask you those questions and just get you started. So it basically has just started the conversation with you without you having to create that prompt yourself.
Brilliant. Well, okay, brilliant. Well, we'll check that out. But yeah, you're a star pupil, Lani. You're doing so amazing. Thank you for sharing everything with us. It's so kind of you. And it's so great to see, you jet setting around the world in your new job. You're obviously well on your way. But thank you so much for joining us today. Lyn, Kelly, any final words?
Thank you so much for today. We could probably talk all day. So thank you so much for that. And I love that you came from starting with Supermums and look at you now. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure and I'm happy to help.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.